And from there, I realized, wow, there's actually all sorts of programs all over the world that have done this in the past, some in the United States, some in other countries, and they've been very effective at helping people save money. And they offer a very unique value proposition, which is the opportunity to win a large amount of money with no risk to your principal. And there's not really any other consumer financial products that offer that.
Layer 1 is a podcast and community dedicated to helping you master all things crypto. We'll be bringing you the best interviews with project executives, technical analysis for trading of the most popular cryptocurrencies, and insight into what's actually happening behind the scenes.
As you join us each episode, you're going to hear about tokens, fundraisers, investments, and even crypto conspiracies. But please remember that nothing we say should be considered financial or legal advice.
Come join us on this journey, and welcome to Layer 1. All right, everybody, we have another episode of Layer 1. We are coming to you with the founder of PoolTogether, but I have Dimitri here. Dimitri, what's going on, man? I'm sure it's cold over there. We're getting some snow here in Virginia, so Pittsburgh's got to be cold.
You getting some snow in Virginia, man? That's kind of weird. But yeah, we are getting some snow here as well. So the winter is not over for Pittsburgh, and it's probably not going to be over until like May.
I heard Leighton there. He's so surprised that we're getting snow in Virginia. But he's in New York City right now. But Leighton, we're going to talk everything PoolTogether. We're going to talk a lot about DeFi and all of these things popping up in crypto. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I am recovering from a cold, actually, so my voice might sound a little weird, but I am feeling good, and I'm excited to be on here.
Awesome, man. Well, we start these episodes. We want to hear your backstory, and in my kind of pre-episode research, the first thing I do is like go to people's Twitters and like see what they're all about, right? And one of the first pinned tweets that you have on your Twitter is talking about how you pitched at ETHDenver in 2019 and how you kind of went there, just by yourself, and how all of kind of PoolTogether started at that conference. But I really want to get into that, but can you wrap up to that moment as far as like how you got into crypto and how you found Bitcoin and all these things?
Yeah, for sure. So I got into crypto in 2016 after Trump was elected. That was the impetus for me. I kind of was like, hey, good time to buy Bitcoin. Got all these trade wars, got all these, everything's kind of going south. So, and so that's what actually got me into Bitcoin. And at the time, if you guys remember, Coinbase sold two assets. They sold Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so I was like, hey, what's this other one? It only cost $9. And I was like, hey, buy some of that. Like a week later, it went up to like 60. And I was like, whoa, I like this one. So anyways, that's how I got into it. And so I really got into it more on the like non-nation state store of value proposition. But then, as over the past several years, as I learned more and more, I just got more and more into Ethereum. And Ethereum is, where I spend all my time now. I still like Bitcoin, but I do think Ethereum's the future. And so I was working at a job, a company I had co-founded, that we sold in 2017. I left in early 2018, took some time off and started doing some research on what I wanted to do next. And I knew I wanted to do something related to blockchain technology. And I also knew I wanted to do something that was around building financial products that help people achieve financial health. And so I was doing a lot of research around that. That's where I stumbled across the idea for prize-linked savings, aka no loss lotteries, and thought, hey, this would be something that would be way better on a blockchain. And that was in like January of 2019. February is when I went to ETHDenver. So that's kind of the backstory.
So outside of crypto, where does this no loss lottery process kind of play itself out? Where did you see it happen in real time?
Yeah, so I actually was talking to a friend and I was telling them about my research and they were like, oh, that's really cool. Have you ever heard of no loss lotteries? And I was like, no. And so my introduction to it was the Wikipedia page. If you look at prize-linked savings, is what it's titled, the prize-linked savings Wikipedia page. And from there, I realized, wow, there's actually all sorts of programs all over the world that have done this in the past, some in the United States, some in other countries. And they've been very effective at helping people save money. And they offer a very unique value proposition, which is the opportunity to win a large amount of money with no risk to your principal. And there's not really any other consumer financial products that offer that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder how they do it because, with the interest rates and right now that we have with just regular fiat and banking system, it's pretty low. So I wonder how they'd be able to pay out the rewards, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well, a lot of them are subsidized for sure.
Mm.
Like in the US, the banks will subsidize, they'll say like $10,000 to open an account or whatever. But in the largest current prize savings program is in the UK, and they have $100 billion, over $100 billion US dollars in their prize savings accounts. And their yield that they get is 1.4% APR. But when you have $100 billion, it's still millions of dollars a month in prizes.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty fascinating. I didn't think it was that big. Really, it's actually the first time that I've heard of no loss lottery, to be honest, through, your project. So super interested to, break that down even more.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, we're going to get onto that thing that I teased earlier in the episode about ETHDenver 2019. So take us through that entire story and really break down like your mindset as you traveled there. Cause it's really like a fascinating story of just life in general and kind of how success happens randomly, but not so randomly. So really break that down, man. I really enjoyed that story.
Yeah, for sure. So, I had been interested in Ethereum for a while, but I had never gone to any crypto events. I wasn't officially working in Ethereum. I didn't really know a lot about it, and I'm not a technical person. I mean, I'm not like I can't write code. And so I heard about ETHDenver from a friend who was kind of in a friend who I just had from life, but he happened to be working in the Ethereum space, and he was like, "Hey, there's this event. Why don't we apply together and we can go together?" And I thought that sounded great. And so we applied together. I got accepted. I honestly didn't think I would get accepted, but I did get accepted. But then about a week before, he's like, "Hey, you know what? I actually don't want to go." So he bailed. And ETHDenver also happens over Valentine's Day, which I happen to have a girlfriend. So it's just like, I was kind of like, do I even want to go? I know 0 people there. Like, it's super inconvenient. It's going to be like, I'm not technical. Going to hackathons as a non-technical person can be pretty intimidating, I think, and you can feel pretty worthless. And so I was really on the fence about it, but I was like, hey, what the heck, I'll show up. And so I showed up, and yeah, definitely didn't feel comfortable. Definitely felt insecure. But the first night, Friday night, was the first night I was there. They had open pitching, where basically anyone who didn't come as a team, because most people come as teams, anyone who didn't come as a team could get up and just pitch their idea, and there was other people there who didn't have teams. And so there's probably like 40 or 50 people there. And so they started doing it, and I wasn't going to, I had the idea for PoolTogether in my head, and I wanted to work on it, but I didn't want to pitch it. And so I wasn't planning to pitch, but more and more people kept like pitching their ideas, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm just going to go do mine.
So you just pitched it just off the top of your head? You didn't have any slide deck or anything?
Oh, no. Yeah, no slide deck. No, I had the idea for like, prize link savings on the blockchain, but there's no preparation. So I pitched it, and the pitch was, I would say, pretty well received. There's like several people who were like, oh, that's a really cool idea. There's a few different people who wanted to work on it. And so 2 specific people, Dave Anderson and Scott, can't remember his last name right now, but Scott, we worked on it that weekend. And so that was great to have a little bit of validation. And I thought we actually did a pretty good job working on it. And we pitched the judges at the end on Sunday. And we waited to hear back. And I thought the top 20 teams all get to pitch on stage. And I thought for sure we're going to pitch on stage. I was super stoked because Vitalik was going to be judging. He was going to see our idea. And anyways, we didn't get on stage. We didn't even get in like the top half of the teams at ETHDenver. So that was a bummer. So that the whole judging thing happened. We didn't get in the top. And so I was kind of discouraged by that too. And so
do you remember any of the winners that won that maybe like were in front of you at that event?
It's funny, I don't.
Okay.
I think there were some really good projects, but I don't remember. I was trying to remember it because I was there this year. I don't remember what any of the other ones were. But anyway, so this ended, and the last event is a happy hour that happened. And I'm kind of burned out. We stayed up all night Saturday working on our thing. I was staying with my aunt and uncle to save money, who live in Denver. So I was like, I should just go home and have dinner with them. But I really kind of, again, decided to kind of push myself, get outside my comfort zone. And I was like, I'm going to show up to happy hour So I showed up to the happy hour, and I randomly ran into these two guys, Brendan and Chuck, and started talking to them about what I was working on, what the idea was, and they were pretty excited about it. And long story short, those guys became my co-founders.
Wow, that's that's amazing. It's actually interesting when you mentioned going to a conference alone, and especially the hackathon. And it's like feeling kind of left out there, which is great for people to hear something like this, where there's many opportunities available around that, especially if they have the people that are looking to pitch projects for those developers, and you get to find developers as well on the spot, right? And you don't have to pay anything, right? To use the labor force of the developers, right? It was just an idea that was spinning around, and nobody was kind of on board to do that. So after that hackathon, right? So what happened next? Did you guys have to raise any money to create that product, or did you continue to kind of work on it as with your co-founders, just without pay or whatnot?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the real short version, I initially actually hired Chuck and Brendan as contractors for a very short period of time to build the testnet, Rinkeby testnet version of PoolTogether. And I had some money from the company that I did before, so that was possible for me. So that was like obviously a privilege that I had, which is part of the story. So that was what I did, and then we put the Rinkeby testnet up. Then we got a grant from Maker, and that's what paid for us to get to mainnet. So they gave us a $15,000 grant, and they paid for our audit. So that gave us to mainnet 1. Our mainnet 1 release went well, so they gave us another $35,000 grant. That got us to mainnet 2. That went well, and then that put us in a position to raise a venture capital. So we weren't actually paying ourselves, like the PoolTogether, the company didn't form until late September, but we were working on it in February of 2019. So there's a pretty long window where we were working on it part-time, paying ourselves out of pocket / working for free / Maker grant.
Interesting. Yeah, it's so you did get some kind of subsidization, from Maker to pay for the audits. I bet those audits are actually pretty pricey, right?
Oh yeah.
From client staff. But cool. So you ready to get into PoolTogether and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So before we do that, what was the process of? Did you approach like the MakerDAO Foundation, or did they kind of reach out to you? How did you secure that kind of like initial funding from them?
So that's another great like little story. So we got the Rinkeby prototype done, and I was basically like, "This sucks. Like, it's on Rinkeby. You can't even use it. It's not really like what I want it to be at all. It's like." I just spent all my own money paying to build this thing that like really doesn't work. But I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it to the MakerDAO Reddit. And in my head, I'm like, what value is that going to do? I should wait until we have a better version. Like there's no reason to post to MakerDAO Reddit, like whatever. But I posted to MakerDAO Reddit, and it happened to be like a really popular post on the Reddit. And because of that, a few things happened. One, Dan Elitzer reached out to me from IDEO Collab Ventures, which ended up leading our fundraising round in September. So that's how I originally got connected to him. And two, QuantStamp reached out to me actually and connected me to Rich at Maker, who runs the grant program. And after emailing Rich a couple times, he finally got back to me and allowed us to apply for a grant. Wow. So if I hadn't posted it to that Maker Reddit, I don't think we ever would have gotten connected to the grant. I wouldn't have gotten connected to Dan, who ended up leading our fundraising round. So yeah, I definitely think the lesson for me from all this is like, you never know like what the secondary implications of taking a little step of faith to say like, hey, this feels uncomfortable, this is vulnerable, I feel insecure, but I'm gonna like just post this thing or talk to these people or show up to this conference.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting. And it's also, if you're posting that on Reddit, what are the risks of somebody actually taking that idea and making it too, right?
Yeah. So you definitely have those thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, you have so many things that just like, it's just like happenstance, right? It's just like, do I want to go to ETHDenver? And you end up going, and all of these things kind of fall into place as you kind of take that risk. It reminds me, we had David Jeffries from V Systems, and he kind of attended a conference when he was just getting into crypto. And he was like, he had seen the CEO of Steemit. And like he was like, I don't want to go up there, and talk to this guy, because I really enjoy social media applications and how they're working their way into crypto. He ended up doing it, and he ended up getting a job at Steam. And it's amazing what can happen at conferences just in crypto alone, sure. but it's amazing to see it play out in your life. So let's go into that, like, kind of live launch of PoolTogether, if we're going to call it that.
Yeah. So after the testnet posted on Reddit, then we got the $15K grant from Maker, which paid for our audit, as well as some other additional work we needed to do to get it to like a V1 release.
Okay.
And so that's what that looks like. I would say the one thing on the V1 release, we had a really good release. Like when we released it, we had like a ton of people talking about it, a ton of influencers, et cetera. And you would probably think like I'm super well connected. I'm not. What I do think we did well though, is we made a video that explained it in a very simple video. I made it in Keynote, and I paid $50 to hire some voiceover person to do a professional voiceover, and that's all it costs. Wow. And we wrote a blog post, and then we just like made a list of like who's all the people who we know, or not even necessarily we know, but we just know of, who are influential, and we just sent them like a message and said, hey, we just launched this thing. We think it's really cool. We would be honored if you would share it. And a lot of people did that. And then some people did, and then their friends saw it and they shared it. And so like, that's how it worked. And so I guess like the lesson I'm trying to share, I think a lot of people forget this in the crypto space, is like launching your product. It has a lot more than just the product being finished. Like think about how you're gonna like, right. Have all the collateral done, have the talking points done, have the video done, have a list, a spreadsheet of everyone you're going to email, like have all that stuff done before you launch.
And those, sorry, Q. And I just wanted to ask, and those influencers that you reached out to, did you have to pay them to, advertise?
Yeah, no. And yeah, it's actually interesting because Binance tweeted about PoolTogether last night. And so people are asking us like, did you pay them? And we have never paid anyone for any. The only thing we've paid for one time was like for an educational video to be created, just the video itself. But we don't pay for any marketing, and we won't pay for marketing because like our view is if you're building a good product, then like people are going to talk about it. Mm-hmm. And like if you're building a product that people aren't talking about, paying for marketing is not going to help you.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I feel like you were talking about how people just kind of digested the idea and the idea of the platform, and it just like clicked. Well, it's a really simple process, right? So I think it's super simple for somebody to kind of like digest it wholly and kind of say, oh, I get exactly what they're doing. So we had another kind of platform that goes about this, which is Lolly, on the podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I feel like Bitcoin rebates are like a very simple process to understand, and therefore people can digest it and then, send it on to their friends and yada, yada, yada. But they're kind of attacking it from a standpoint of, we're going to try to bring in non-crypto users, right? Like we want to attract crypto users that love Bitcoin, but we also want to, kind of reach out and see who we can bring in. What is your thought process with building this app? Are you trying to reach out to non-crypto users as well? Are you just targeting crypto users in general? What is your thought process there?
Yeah. So we like to take the same approach of like Tesla and Elon Musk, right?
That's so Elon,
yeah, it's a good one. So Elon Musk, right? He says like the mission of Tesla is to provide like clean energy for everyone, right? And the first thing we're going to do is build a super expensive sports car. And then we're going to use the profits from that to build a mid-range sports car. And we're going to use the profits from that to build an affordable sports car. And so we see it the same way, right? Like our mission is to build products that promote financial health. The first thing we're going to do is build this product that works for people who are already in crypto, which is by definition, people who generally already have a lot of money, right? So I guess that's a long way of saying, yes, we absolutely want to go for like normal people and onboarding normal people, but we also realize that like you're limited by the constraints of the technology of the moment. And so we have to like start somewhere and then kind of like build towards that vision. So our vision is to help just the average person, but realistically right now who's using our product, it's mostly people already in crypto.
Interesting. And what is do you have any kind of information about your users? Have you done any polls of like where are they coming from as far as the demographics go?
Yeah. So I mean, we're intentional about not collecting a lot of data, right? Just with like DeFi, but we do have a very basic version of analytics. And so one thing I can say is that our audience is super global, and we've been really intentional about cultivating that. Like our website's already translated in Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, Croatian, Italian, other languages. And so we get a lot of traffic from China, a lot from Indonesia, India, Western Europe, Russia. We actually the majority of our traffic does come from the United States, but that is actually only like 22%. So like 22% of our traffic is the largest single geography. So it's very much spread out.
Interesting. And how does that, impact the kind of the regulatory side with those jurisdictions? Have you guys thought about, maybe some restrictions in certain areas?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, for regulatory stuff, we're primarily obviously focused on like the regulatory issues in the country where the employees are based, right? We obviously have implemented stuff that, to make sure we're complying with, FinCEN regulation around terrorist watch lists and things like that. So there is that, but we do spend a lot of time and money on like regulatory issues, and that's auditing and regulatory are like the two biggest expenses. If it wasn't for those things, we probably wouldn't have had to raise money in the first place. But that's kind of like the high level, but I can't necessarily speak to the legal issues in any specific country.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. And before we go any further, let's kind of break down exactly in like 1 to 4 steps how PoolTogether actually works. For the people that have never used it, we have a ton of other questions, but I think they relate to actually, the process of what happens with PoolTogether. So we always wait till 20 minutes in, but
yeah. So at a high level, PoolTogether today has a pool that has about $1 million in it. And and each week that pool awards about a $1,500 prize, and anyone can join that pool by putting money into it. And when you put money in, you get tickets. You get 1 ticket for every dollar you put in, and each ticket represents a chance to win. So the more money you put in, the higher your chance to win is. You can take your money out at any time. You can put it in at any time, and as long as your money's in, it's eligible to win. So you always have a chance to win a prize. You never lose your money. And the way that's obviously possible is that the prize is funded by the interest that accrues on all that money. So again, for context, we have about $1 million right now from about 3,500 unique users, and that yields about a $1,500 weekly prize. So that's kind of like the scope of what we have. So anyone can come to PoolTogether.com. The things you have to have an Ethereum wallet that's capable of interacting with Ethereum apps. There's a whole bunch of them in the App Store, etc. You have to have DAI, which is a stable coin pegged to the US dollar. So it doesn't go up and down like Bitcoin, but it just stays stable, which is a really important part of the savings mechanism. And then you have to have Ethereum, which is what you use to pay the transaction fees, which don't go to us, but go to the Ethereum network. So if you have those 3 things, you can join the pool. You deposit your DAI. Your DAI is always going to be tradable, worth $1, and you can withdraw it at any time.
So you have a user's amount as well as a sponsored amount that's in that collecting interest. What is the difference between the user amount and that sponsored amount? And how did you go about getting sponsors to actually put DAI into this account?
Yeah. So user amount is DAI that's been deposited into the pool that's eligible to win. It's been redeemed, it's worth tickets. The sponsored is DAI that's in the pool that's contributing interest to the prize, but is not eligible to win. So what that means is PoolTogether has a higher effective APR and a higher expected value than if you just put your money into like a interest account. So that's the advantage of it. It basically makes the prizes bigger and gives you a better chance to win a larger prize. Right now, the sponsored DAI is pretty much all money that we took from our investors and put into PoolTogether. So that's what it is right now. But we're working right now with a few different other crypto companies that are want to put DAI in to sponsor it, and then we'll give them some publicity and like the weekly email we send and like on a leaderboard we're building so that they can have they can have some value in exchange for sponsoring. So it's great for them because it's no loss sponsorship too, right? Like they just put their DAI in there. They can take it out whenever they want to. They don't lose anything. They get free publicity and they make the prize bigger.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty amazing to kind of subsidize that. I just want to kind of ask you about, why did you go with DAI, and if you're looking to introduce any maybe other stable coins besides that, on the platform.
Yeah. So DAI for two reasons. One, it's the highest yielding stablecoin.
Mm-hmm.
So it has, generally speaking, it fluctuates a bit. But the other big one is it's decentralized. So where Tether and USDC both have are more centralized, and if you're holding Tether or USDC, it's possible for that to be essentially kind of confiscated from you. But with DAI, that's not. So that's the big reason. We actually do support USDC. I haven't been talking about it as much, but we just a couple of weeks ago, we introduced a daily prize pool that has USDC. Our DAI prize pool is weekly, and that's larger, so that's why I talk about that one more. And so in the future, we do want to support Tether too. We want to support all stable coins, but we definitely think I talk the most about DAI because I do think the decentralization is important.
So I kind of want to go through exactly where you see this going in the future, because I feel like this is iteration number one, right? And I think there's so many ways that this could be gamified. You were talking on mass adoption earlier, and where your mindset is. Pre-episode, me and Dima were kind of going through PoolTogether. I was like, hey man, these are the questions, it's mass adoption. He's like, well, I don't think they're actually attracting mass adoption because they're starting with DAI. No original user is going to use DAI, but down the road, do you what are the next iterations of PoolTogether? Because there's so many ways this could be gamified.
Yeah. So I think we don't want to mess much we want to keep the core as simple as possible. And we don't want to mess with the core concept much. But what we want to do is make it really easy to build on top of, and also to make it much easier to use. So much easier to use. Let me talk about that first. So that basically just means you can set up a wallet in kind of a traditional Web 2 way with just a password and the email. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to install a browser extension. Integrate the fiat on-ramp, meaning you can just use your credit card to instantly get tickets. You don't even have to worry about DAI and ETH meta transactions, so that we can cover ETH for people. So that's the stuff we're working on, and making it easier to use. And that's important to us. The other big thing we're working on kind of that side is the user side is helping more people win more often. So we think winning is super important. And right now only one person wins every week, right? So that kind of sucks. So what we're doing with that is we're building this infrastructure now, and it'll be released in March, to let people link their tickets together. So then if you only have 10 DAI and there's 1 million DAI in the pool, you have a really small chance to win. But then what you can do is you can link your tickets with other people. And then if any of you win, the prize gets split proportionally among everyone in what we call the pod. So that's the other big thing that we think is super important for kind of gamification, and also just making sure it can scale. But then on the flip side, we're also trying to make it easier to build on the PoolTogether protocol. So we would hopefully see in a year from now, there'll be the PoolTogether.com won't be the only place you can join the PoolTogether protocol. You could potentially join through other apps that are contextualized, in maybe local languages, or maybe they have different types of prize payouts, or maybe they have prizes on top. We're talking to one group right now, Legend Finance, that basically what they're planning to do is offer their own prize, but then everyone who enters their pool will also go into PoolTogether. So it's kind of you can get double prizes. So I think hopefully we'll see a lot of that type of stuff happening.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I was going to ask you about this because, looking at the odds and the winners that you have in the pool right now, you'll see somebody holding 100,000 of tickets, and it's the win, chance is 1 out of 4, while most of the people's chances are way lower. So it's kind of tough for the little guys to win when you have a couple of big whales that are pretty much taking it, and essentially what they're doing is kind of extracting the interest of the smaller people, right? So that idea of kind of pulling together the smaller people to get a chance is something that's very interesting. So you guys said you were working on that now, right? Also I want to ask you about specifically on decentralizing. So you mentioned you chose DAI because it's decentralized, but the PoolTogether is not decentralized, right? At the moment.
Yeah,
right?
not completely, no.
Right.
No.
Where is what are you guys planning to do with that? Are you planning to decentralize that down the road? Because I was looking at your, the audit report, and one of the things that I think pretty much that's the only risk that they mentioned is just that the fact that your platform is not decentralized. What is kind of the risk there, not being decentralized, and what do you guys see, kind of going into moving into decentralization? What is the strategy there?
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think where I should start. So there's two risks. There's two main types of risk when you're using a smart contract product. One is that there could be a problem with the smart contract code itself, right? And that's a risk that you have, and that risk pretty much exists. It can exist in a fully decentralized product or in a centralized product. It exists either way. The second area of risk is what you would call like contract upgrade risk. And so generally what people mean when they talking about a product having centralization to it is that there is still the ability for the contracts to be upgraded by whoever has the privileges of upgrading them, which in this case rests with the PoolTogether, the company. And so the risk you're taking with that is, one, if PoolTogether, the company, basically if all the employees colluded together to steal the money in the contracts, that is possible. That is technically speaking, that is possible. Obviously we want to do that, but that is technically possible. Right. The other risk is if there was somehow a way that the wallets that control the ability to upgrade the contracts were compromised by people outside of PoolTogether who are nefarious, then they could do something similar. And again, that is hypothetically possible. That we've taken a lot of precautions against that. The wallets are in cold storage and stored in multiple different geographic locations. Like there's a lot to prevent that from happening, but hypothetically that's possible. So that's the problem with centralization. And this is an issue a lot of DeFi protocols face, and this is why we want to get away from centralization completely. And we think that we actually have a pretty clear path to doing it, and we think we could, like, by the end of the year, for sure, we can be completely decentralized. We have to, there's a few specific things that aren't available yet, kind of technology-wise, for us to be able to fully decentralize, but we're really optimistic about being able to do it pretty soon.
Yeah. So at what point it's a 7-day cycle, correct? As far as this lottery system works. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So at what point, because it might not be apparent to people right now, but you guys aren't actually taking a cut of this interest, which I'm sure is the way that you're going to generate revenue in the future. So at what point in the process are you taking the revenue? If it is interest, I guess you would just confirm that. But and then when are you guys planning to start doing this and generating an actual profit?
So taking a part of the interest is a pretty clear, straightforward business model. If it happens, it would be after full decentralization. So we would not do it as a company. It would be done in a decentralized manner through like a DAO or something like that. And so that's still an if for us. Like we want to extract the minimum amount of rent at the protocol level as possible, so that you can have the most people building on top of it. Because we do think the other option for monetization, which also makes sense without monetizing on the protocol at all, is at the front end, right? So you have the front end of the protocol, which right now it's just PoolTogether.com, and you could charge a fee there and say, hey, it's $1 every time you convert your money into DAI, and it's $1 every time you take it out. The protocol remains completely free, but the front end charges a fee. And so I think both of those are viable options, but we would not do anything to monetize the protocol in a centralized way through PoolTogether. The protocol is open source. It's not owned by PoolTogether. We don't own the copyright to it. It's been given up. The copyright's open. So so it's not owned by PoolTogether. So it wouldn't make sense for us to extract rent there unless there was something built into the protocol itself that was decentralized and did that.
Got it. Okay. Well, we have probably a couple more questions here on PoolTogether before we kind of zoom out and look at the entire crypto landscape. But what has been the initial reaction from the community as far as like feedback that you've gotten from the actual app, right? Like you guys have done a great job of like creating a really good user experience. I think very easy to understand, like we touched on earlier. But what has been the actual user feedback from people who've used the app?
I think people love the idea. I think it's still really hard to use. So
break that down.
I think, I mean, people love the value prop. They love it's fun. It's like, why would I not do this? Like, of course I want to put my money in there. It's great. It's like when I talk to friends, family about it, even if they have no crypto, they're like, oh, how do I do that? But yeah, the actual experience of it is still difficult. And I think we do get some credit. I think people sometimes look at us and say like, oh, PoolTogether has a really great experience. And I think maybe compared to other Web3 apps, we do have a decent experience, but we still have a long way to go in terms of usability if you want to take someone from like no crypto to be in PoolTogether.
So just like zooming out a little bit, we talked about PoolTogether. What exactly, as far as like the crypto landscape goes, are you looking at that interests you outside of kind of DeFi and what you're doing with your actual platform? I understand you have your head down. Maybe you don't have a chance to like look at everything else, but what interests you out there?
Yeah, I love that question because I love crypto. So not outside DeFi, but Curve Finance. I love Curve Finance. I think it's the coolest thing I've seen in the last 6 months. It's enabling, stablecoin to stablecoin swaps that are super cheap. It's also the first exchange ever built on top of Compound, which is just genius. So that's awesome. I think the personal token stuff is pretty cool. I also really like the Saint Fame, like tokens that represent claims on physical objects. I think that is also a really, really cool model. I think the SET protocol social trading stuff is really cool. I'm excited about that.
What's this? Break the SET protocol down, because we had the crypto collectible actually episode like 2 days ago. We had Crypto Kaiju who makes those like vinyl crypto kitties and attaches an NFT token to them. So that's pretty cool.
I haven't even heard of that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. But go ahead, break down the SET protocol for us.
Well, SET protocol is basically it's a DeFi app where you can deposit DAI or ETH, and it will have an automated trading strategy for you. So we'll say like, hey, every time Bitcoin goes up 20%, we'll sell, and every time it goes down 40%, we'll buy, like things like that. But what they introduce is social trading, where you can follow people, and then whatever trades they do, it'll automatically do for you, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's actually was something that was really popular in Forex, where people would, follow essentially professional traders. You know what, actually back in the day during the ICO boom, I've seen at conferences like these platforms that were, looking to do something like this, right? To have social trading aspect and like have professional traders and you can follow them. But none of them really kind of, succeeded. It was weird because I think they were kind of early to the market because, right now, the way things are going with trading, like maybe the liquidity was not available back in the day and so on, right? So there was a lot of technical issues behind it that were not available. But, it looks like, eToro is actually really big in that space right now.
Yeah.
That's offering, it is a centralized place, but, having that in a decentralized platform would be something that's really fantastic. So I remember the question.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask, is there a limit to this pool? Like, can you go just into billions of dollars, and that's it? Or do you guys keep a cap somehow for the pool?
There's no limits at the protocol level, our protocol level, right? And we try to keep the protocol obviously permissionless and it's open source. So there's not that. I mean, there's technically right now, like the DAI supply limit, I think is 125 million. So that would be, but USDC, which we have a USDC pool, there's already way more than 125 million. I'm not sure what the supply is, but it's a lot higher. So there's some theoretical limits, but no, I mean, I think 5 years from now, having $1 billion in the pool is not a crazy idea. $10 billion is still very realistic if you look at what the addressable market is that we're going for and how much better a product built on Ethereum is versus the current alternatives.
Right. No, that's amazing. And I really love the, kind of how you guys started doing this and not going fully decentralized right away because, we're seeing a lot of issues in the DeFi right now where certain projects are decentralizing and looking to decentralize, but they're having some issues, with front running oracles and all that stuff in the background, and that's kind of the pains that you have to go through, when you decentralize and putting out the product to make sure that things are running smoothly so you're able to update, any type of bugs and so on.
Yeah.
So, and I was talking to Kane at Synthetics about it, where it seems like it's like you have to go through the pain to find out what the market can do to your product, and then and then patch it up and evolve and constantly move forward in building out that decentralization, and eventually get there. Because he was saying that if you try to make it perfect and then release it, that's really not going to be the case.
Yeah. I mean, that's only products that have launched decentralized and been successful, Uniswap, Curve is that way, and there's not many others. Like there's very, very, very few. Almost all products that still have some centralization to them. And I wouldn't say full decentralization it's not the last step, but it's certainly not, in my opinion, it's not the first. The first is product market fit. And, and then I think in the middle is kind of the full decentralization.
Guys, I think we should get an award for this, but we went 50 minutes talking about Ethereum without bringing up scalability. So, but I do want to touch on this and interoperability, because we have that term obviously has come up a lot in the past 6 months. But let's say you're getting a ton of transactions here on PoolTogether. You're obviously like on Ethereum. So what happens when you get a ton of volume, or as far as those transactions go? Are you planning on maybe moving to some other platform, or are you addressing this issue at all, or are you just hoping Ethereum 2.0 kind of fixes that? Have you given any thought to that?
Yeah, I think our general philosophy is like we'll probably scale commiserately with the other pieces of the ecosystem. So we don't worry about it too much. I mean, if today 100,000 people tried to use it, all that would happen is like transactions would get really expensive and really slow, but people wouldn't lose their funds. Like it's not like an existential risk. So, our take is that like there's a lot of people who are a lot smarter than us who are working on scalability, and those are a lot of the same people who have delivered on the current Ethereum platform that we use, and it's an amazing platform. So we don't have any reason to think that what they're working on isn't also going to be really good. So that's our take. If it's a year from now and ETH2 is still way off in the distance and things aren't working, then we'll need to adjust that. But I think right now we have a lot of confidence in the core team, the core Ethereum team.
Got it. Yeah, we talked about it on the last episode with Crypto Kaiju, how, kind of the interoperability and maybe connecting to other chains benefits the platforms more than it does the networks, right? Like you can connect. Why couldn't you do a stable coin on, EOS or stable coin on Tron or all of these things? I understand like there's security implications behind that. They are different consensus, mechanisms. So is that kind of the fear there? Because I feel like it's like a no-brainer for platforms to move to these other communities and attract more users.
Yeah, you mean a no-brainer for like a platform like us to do that?
Yeah, well, platforms in general, right? Like even any DApp, if it's moving from one to another, you're gaining access to a whole nother community base that maybe was closed off before.
Yeah, you are for sure, and that's true. But you're also like the platforms are I would say are very different from a technical perspective in terms of like the features they have, the way the programming languages work, the way it's written, all that kind of stuff. And so we're definitely taking more of the track of like let's try to do like a very specific thing really, really well, rather than kind of like let's try to like and you see that in the product too, right? Like as soon as we launch the product, people are like, hey, you could use this for no loss donations, you could use this for no loss investing. And like I think those are really good ideas, and I think people are going to be successful doing them. Our DAI is already doing that, and they are successful doing it. But we're trying to do this one thing really well, and so that's kind of our overall take on it.
Gotcha. That's a great answer. So, we kind of touched on PoolTogether, and is there anything before we kind of ask like some more general questions before we end the episode here? Is there anything as far as PoolTogether goes that you really want to touch on that maybe we didn't hit?
I don't think so. I just hope everyone gives it a try and sends us their feedback. hello@pooltogether.us or Twitter or whatever. Like we want to help people get started if they can't, and we want to hear your feedback. So that would be the only thing I'd say.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll have a link in the description. We'll make sure to send all of our community members that are interested over to PoolTogether. But let's talk about NYC, man, because you said you've been in New York City for 5 years now. I'm kind of upset that I'm not there now. NFT NYC is happening, and I'm super obviously interested in non-fungible tokens if you haven't noticed. But what is it like being in that ecosystem in NYC? Because we're all jealous being on the outside, right? What do you find is the best parts and the worst parts of living in NYC as far as crypto is concerned?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is I probably don't take advantage of it as much as I should. Like I tend to be pretty heads down. That's kind of my personality. And so, I don't do a ton. One thing I do is on Wednesdays, I've picked up this habit of I work out of Placeholder's office, which is like a VC firm in the crypto space. They just invited me to work out of their office, and I thought that was great. So there's stuff like that, and that's really nice. And it's kind of intangible, but it's really nice. So the pros and cons. I mean, the pros are that there are options like that, and the cons are kind of the same. I think, it's really easy to get distracted by going to events. And I mean, that depends on what you're doing, right? Like if you're more on the media content side, then I think going to events is really important. If you're more on like the product side, then I think going to events can often be distracting. And so I actually do try to like really focus. And a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, we're in New York, let's meet in person." And I'll actually just say like, "No, let's actually just do a phone call," because it will take me an extra 2 hours if I have to like take the subway and there and back.
Yeah, and you know what? I've attended a couple events in New York for crypto. I traveled there quite a bit because my family is there, I try to attend as many events as possible to kind of gauge what's the sentiment there in New York. But it's actually interesting because a lot of times I'll come to an event that's kind of like trying to be like crypto blockchain, and it turns out to be something different, and the quality is really kind of bad. So I think like there's a lot of events that happen in New York, but the quality, like sometimes it's hard to find the really quality events that have, what they're actually trying to do, right? What is your experience kind of going to these events? Have you encountered something where it's just like you walk in and it's like, what the hell did I get into? Like.
Yeah, I think I probably have stayed away from most of those because I've gone to some. The ones I go to are just more very informal, like happy hour type things. I will throw a plug out there. Ethereal NYC is coming up, and I think that's going to be really good. I am biased because I'm going to do something. I'm not sure if I'm going to be on a panel or speaking, but I'll do something. But basically, if you're into DeFi, like everyone in DeFi is going to be there. So I think that's going to be an awesome event. And I went to the one in Tel Aviv, and that was a really good event. So I'll throw that plug out there. But I tend to do like I go to more of just like happy hours. I don't really do like the formal events as much.
Gotcha. Well, hey, next time we're in NYC, we'll definitely have to pull you away and do that meeting that you don't want to do.
Yeah. Just if you come close to my apartment, like I can just meet you really quickly, then that's I'm much more open to that.
Okay, we'll try to fit into that schedule. But I think you did a small little plug there about PoolTogether, but if you can just hit it one more time on where the community can kind of find more information about PoolTogether, and then we have one last question.
Yeah. Well, PoolTogether.com is the website. So that's a great spot to go. We do have a Discord, which is linked to. And so we're very active there. Also Telegram, not as active, but you can talk to us. And then Twitter, I would say we're very active on Twitter. So PoolTogether _ at the end, because it's, we didn't have the vanity URL, the full one. So those are great places to get in touch with us. And I think just give it a try. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, absolutely. No, this has been fantastic. So as always, by tradition, Q, we always ask our guests one last question. And given the fact that, your background here, you have a lot of books in the back. So the question is, what is the book that you would recommend to our listeners that, it can do with blockchain, crypto, it can, be not related to crypto at all, be philosophical. What is your favorite book, basically?
Oh man, my favorite book?
Or it could be a couple of books too.
Yeah. I'm really a big fan of Kierkegaard, who is the 19th century Danish philosopher, existentialist. And so the Kierkegaard anthology is probably my favorite book of my life. But so I'll throw that out there. And then I will also say Nick Szabo, who is a very well-known, prominent member, kind of more on the Bitcoin side. His writing is awesome. And his writing was a big inspiration for PoolTogether. Specifically his writing on social scalability and how blockchains reduce the needed trust to scale social institutions. So I'd recommend that for sure.
Where can you find that?
The internet, Dima.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah. Yeah, Nick Szabo's on his blog. And then the Kierkegaard anthology, you can just Google that one. I don't know how to spell Kierkegaard. But I don't even think I'm pronouncing it right, to be honest. But the last thing I'll say with just another more pop culture, I just read Educated. That I know it's been New York Times bestseller for a long time, but that is just an insane story. So that's a great one to read. Nonfiction.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, this has been a great episode. We will have to get up to New York City and schedule that meeting sometime, hopefully. But this was awesome. We appreciate you coming on, Leighton Cusack from PoolTogether. Everyone, great episode.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.